Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, today we learned the exact path the Eagles are going to need to follow to repeat as NFC East Division champions and make it to Super Bowl 60. The NFL today released the 2025 schedule to a wide variety of reception, and it was really the social media Super Bowl day as well, because social media teams generally have a little bit of fun. So before we get into the Eagles schedule, and we're going to have a little bit of fun as we do every year here on the Bird's Nest Podcast and make some way too early Eagles predictions for the schedule, we're going to just take a moment to digest the Philadelphia Eagles schedule release video, which was done to the theme 2025 and Eagles Odyssey. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, shots of the Vince Lombardi trophy, excellent. The Philadelphia Orchestra's rendition of 2001, A Space Odyssey, that theme, excellent. The entire video's execution, not really what I was expecting. This was a very mid video for the Super Bowl champions, and I was definitely expecting a lot more from the Philadelphia Eagles social media team. Definitely did not live up to last year's schedule release video, done to the theme of psychological analysis of Eagles fans.
I see Brian Dawkins slamming Algie Crumpler right there at the link. That's what I see.
You see all of that?
And I'm also going to start off by saying 17-0 Super Bowl champs. Fully expect that. As fans, that's kind of what we expect. And honestly, the team under Nick Sirianni expects to go 17-0 over the course of the season because they expect to go 1-0 each week. So that's one of those things that we can kind of have as a realistic expectation. Every single one of the games on the Philadelphia Eagles schedule this year is winnable. It's just the path, and sometimes as we take a look at it, it can definitely be tough. The Eagles do have the division champion schedule in terms of difficulty. There are a number of factors that go into making the schedule, and one of them is where do the Eagles fall in terms of their division placement in the previous season. That's one of the ways that the NFL actually tries to keep teams from running away with Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl after division championship after division championship after division championship, trying to keep teams competitive is they make the schedule very contingent on where you actually finished over the course of the previous season. So the Eagles do have a tough schedule. It is actually, if you take a look at the win percentage of their opponents from 2024, it is the fourth toughest schedule in the NFL. Every single one of the Eagles games are winnable, but there's definitely some areas of concern as we take a look at it. And they actually come with the first block of games. So first off, starting the season on September 4th with the NFL kickoff game against the Dallas Cowboys is chef's kiss perfection. We're going to make Jerry Jones have to sit in his box and watch and seethe, and we'll make the Cowboys watch and seethe as the Philadelphia Eagles bring out the Vince Lombardi trophy, as the Philadelphia Eagles unveil the Super Bowl banner in Lincoln Financial Field for the first time that the Eagles have opened the season against the Dallas Cowboys since 2000, when the Eagles started off the season by doing an onside kick that they recovered. That obviously won't happen. And for the first time that the Eagles have hosted the Dallas Cowboys at home in week 1 since the days of Franklin Field, that is a perfect way to start the season. So the Philadelphia Eagles starting the season against the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Eagles are just going to have so much momentum going into this game. There's going to be so much fan excitement. It's the first game of the NFL season. It's a primetime game. I think the Eagles come away with this one, and I think the Eagles get things started with a win. Then we move on to a Super Bowl 59 rematch of the Kansas City Chiefs And that game is going to be in Kansas City. And you take a look at this team, you take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Eagles definitely have a tough game ahead of them going down to Kansas City. Arrowhead, definitely one of the toughest places for a visiting team to play. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be a tough team, and they will continue to be a tough team, and until something happens, this is going to be a really interesting game. So I do think that the Eagles have the potential to win this game, but the last time that the Eagles had a Super Bowl rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Eagles had lost the Super Bowl and then won the rematch. Now, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. We'll see whether or not they have it in them to win the rematch. Then we have the Week 3 Los Angeles Rams, and then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I want to point out something here as well. So, the Eagles start the season at home, then they go to Kansas City, then they're back home against the LA Rams, and then they go down to Tampa Bay for Week 4. So they're home, away, home, away. And if you look at the schedule, there's not really a good home stretch going on. We have a couple of games that the Eagles have in a row that are away, but they don't really have a ton of in a row home games. And that, I think, could come back to hurt them. So the Eagles play the Los Angeles Rams at home. That's going to be a tough game, even though it's a 1 o'clock game. That's probably going to be a tough game. And then you go down to Tampa Bay, where the Eagles have really been manhandled by the Buccaneers over the course of the last couple of seasons. And I think that the Eagles have the potential to drop at least one of these games. I don't actually think the Eagles are going to go 17-0. The Eagles could split these games. They could take, for example, the home games and then lose the away games. And I would be a happy camper. So I think if the Eagles come away with a floor of 2-2, I think we'll be in a good spot. And I think that that's probably where the Eagles are going to be as we move into this Week 5, this second sort of block of games as we're looking at the schedule. So Week 5, the Eagles are at home again. They are taking on the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos definitely have improved over the course of the last couple of years. Bo Nix at quarterback definitely was not what Broncos fans were expecting. And I think the fact that Bo Nix is as good as he is, definitely, I mean, it put the Broncos in contention for a spot in the playoffs. I don't think the Broncos are as good of a team as the Philadelphia Eagles, so definitely this is one area where I think the Eagles should come away with the victory. I mean, the Eagles at one point in time dropped a 50-burger on the Broncos a couple of seasons ago, so you can take that for what you will. But the Philadelphia Eagles, probably I would expect, would come away with a victory over the Denver Broncos here. Then the Eagles have two matchups against the New York Giants sandwiched around a matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. And these are games that the Eagles should win handily. The New York Giants obviously did not get a whole lot better. Certainly they've got Abdul Carter during the NFL draft this year, but there's still so much in terms of question with that team. And the Giants are, in their schedule, going to really be tested in the first couple of weeks as well. So September is not going to do well for the Giants, and I don't think that going up against their division rival twice in 3 weeks is going to be a good idea for the Giants. So I do think the Eagles will sweep the Giants, which leaves the Minnesota Vikings matchup. And I'm not going to switch all the way over to the Minnesota Vikings schedule, but the Philadelphia Eagles will be facing the Minnesota Vikings after the Minnesota Vikings have to play 2 international games in a row, which is going to be a tough thing for them to do. So it's going to be that, and then they're going to have to face the Super Bowl champions. I think the Eagles, just given the Eagles' history with the Minnesota Vikings, plus you add that factor in, I think the Eagles have a really strong likelihood of beating the Vikings. Because of that, I think that the Eagles should go 4-0 through that next stretch of 4 games, maybe 3-1 depending on how things go with the Broncos. But I think that at this point, the lowest that I see the Eagles' record would be 3 losses at this juncture. Then the Eagles have the bye week. So, bye week in early November. It's going to be a good spot for them. Right smack dab in the middle, they have the chance to recover before they move into the back half of the season, where things could get a little bit more tricky. Now, the NFL schedule is actually fairly formulaic. There's a couple of factors that go in. Notably, everybody in one division will face everybody from another division in their conference and another division from the opposing conference once during the course of the season. So for the NFC East, everybody in the NFC East will face everybody in the NFC North and everybody in the AFC West this year. That's just how everything breaks out. So for the Eagles will be facing all of the NFC North, which is a very competitive division. Last season, with the exception of the Chicago Bears, we saw everybody in the NFC North vying for playoff spots. The Detroit Lions won the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings became the first 14-win wild card team, and then the Green Bay Packers snuck in as the number 7 seed. The fact that all 3 of those teams made the playoffs means that the NFC North probably going to continue to be a challenge this year. So the Eagles come off of the bye week and they'll have to face more of the NFC North. They will face the Green Bay Packers. This time it's going to be played at Lambeau Field. Definitely a historic area for the Eagles to play, but the Packers have had some significant growth, and the Packers definitely surprised a lot of people over the course of the last couple of seasons. So I think the Packers game could be a challenge. Do I think the Eagles are going to win? Oh, absolutely I do. But I think that the Eagles have that potential there to drop at least one of those 2 games that they have coming off of the bye. Because if it's not going to be the Packers, it's going to be at home against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions obviously won the NFC North before having a disappointing finish in the divisional round, losing to the Washington Commanders in the playoffs. Definitely a little bit of a surprise for those guys. So the Lions are going to be out for blood this year. Then you bring it to Dallas to take on the Dallas Cowboys for the second time in the season. Obviously, I think the Eagles are going to sweep the Cowboys this year. And then that means that the Eagles have to come home to play the Chicago Bears. This will be a short week for the Eagles because they are on the Black Friday game. The biggest opponent for that game is going to be the tryptophan hangover. We'll see if the Eagles are going to be able to overcome that. So for the Philadelphia Eagles stretch of games coming off of the bye, most likely, I think they're going to drop one of the games to their NFC North opponents coming off of the bye. My pick would be the Lions in that situation. And I think that the Eagles will defeat the Packers, defeat the Cowboys, and defeat the Bears in that stretch of 4 games. So that means that the Eagles have 5 remaining games left. And if you've been keeping score, that means that the Eagles haven't faced the Washington Commanders yet. The Eagles are going to face the Washington Commanders in this final stretch of 5 games, which not going to be the easiest stretch for the Eagles here either. So the Eagles are away against the Los Angeles Chargers, who have proven themselves to be a little bit more formidable over the course of the last season, so we'll see how the Eagles fare against them. I do think the Eagles win that game. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders, which I do think the Eagles win that game as well, although, again, that's going to be definitely a challenge here. The Philadelphia Eagles will then play the Washington Commanders for the first time on December 20th. Now, December 20th is a Saturday, so the NFL is still playing games with what time that game is going to actually occur. So I wouldn't expect us to find out what time the game is actually going to happen until we get closer. The NFL could also flex that game out of Saturday into Sunday. It is entirely possible that that could occur as well. But for now, the game is slated to occur sometime on Saturday, December the 20th, and that game will happen in DC. So again, we're going back to this theme of away, home, alternating games. The Eagles don't really have a ton of games where they're playing in a row at home, which is definitely going to be a big factor into how they do. So we have the Commanders away, then we have the Buffalo Bills away on December 28th. Again, that game is in Buffalo. So definitely check your weather reports if you plan to go to that game, because that game could be very snowy. I wouldn't be surprised if it is very snowy. And then the Eagles will finish the game at home at Lincoln Financial Field against the Washington Commanders. So if you look at that backstretch of 5, for me, as I'm looking at this, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and one of the Washington Commanders games as surefire wins. I think the Eagles will probably wind up going 3-2 within this stretch. They could win all 5 of those games. But realistically speaking, as I'm looking at this schedule, as I'm looking at the realities of the Eagles' travel, as I'm looking at a number of factors, I think that the Philadelphia Eagles have a reasonable expectation of going 3-2. That would be a minimum that I would expect through that stretch. They could obviously surprise me and do better. If they're doing worse than that in that stretch, I think we have some problems that we need to address late in the season. But I think the Eagles are very likely to, again, split the Commanders. Potentially the split could be, the Eagles could be playing a meaningless game in Week 18. Who knows? We'll see what winds up happening there, and that could be one of the reasons why the Eagles lose that game, right? Is if it's a meaningless game, you split against the Commanders. Que sera, sera there. I do think the Buffalo Bills is going to be a tough game for the Eagles, and I think that the Eagles might actually wind up losing that game. So we'll see there as well. But the Eagles definitely, as I mentioned, have the potential to win every single one of the games that are on this screen. It's just a matter of the preparation for it, and it's just a matter of what is going to actually happen on game day. What personnel do they have available to them as they get late into the season? This is a challenging schedule. This is a difficult schedule. We should not kid ourselves about that. Overall, I think the Eagles have a reasonable floor of 11-6 for what I would consider to be a successful season, just based off of what I'm looking at in this schedule, how back and forth it is, everything to that effect. Do I think it's enough to win the NFC East again? Yes, I absolutely do. Do I think that the Eagles should try for more wins? Oh, absolutely, I think that they do. For a successful season to make the playoffs, and in a division that has gotten substantially more competitive, and with a schedule that is very challenging, I think that an 11-6 Eagles team is enough to make the playoffs. And from there, it's all about getting to the Super Bowl and bringing another one of these guys home. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Are there any predictions that you think I'm just totally off base with? Anywhere you think I hit the mark? Let me know. And thank you so much for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage. And if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. And let's go Eagles.